Hi friends, it's Amy at Doki Doki Forest. Welcome. I'm so glad you are here. Now today I'm gluing away in my Tale of Jemima Puddle Duck altered book once again. This is a book that I picked up secondhand, and it had some stickers in it already from the previous owner, so I took inspiration from that and I'm turning it into an altered spring glue book. Now this image of these Beatrix Potter bunnies comes from an image that Barbara had sent me of a vintage tin that she has. And when I printed it, it came out really large because I just had it on letter size. So I thought, well, let me trim out the bunnies and have them welcoming you into this altered glue book. And then I'm going to also print the tin out on a smaller scale and add that later on, so that way you can see like the whole tin. So thank you, Barbara, for sending me that. And I figure the bunnies are perfect because this is, after all, a spring themed book. So that way I can have my little bunnies. I mean, have you seen any bunnies hopping around? I actually haven't seen many bunnies. Usually this time of year I start seeing them like crazy, so I'm still waiting. But, you know, there's still the Easter bunny and that sort of thing. And bunnies, eggs, you know, green grass once again, and flowers, birds singing. These are all signs of spring, so I'm just trying to add them to the front here to welcome you into this story. I found that beautiful big picture of flowers that I can add at the top. And then I had this garden picture, which I just ripped at the top, so that way you didn't see the sky, because I wanted it to go from the hedges and the trees sort of blending into more flowers instead of having a sky there. And then we'll have the big ol' bunnies sitting down there, looking at their basket. And it's nice to be gluing again. The kids had school vacation this week, so the days kind of flew by. I had some work I had to do, and then I was spending time with the kids, and, you know, wanted to get up here and spend a little time gluing. Usually I do that sort of thing in the morning. I have some quiet time in the morning before the house wakes up, because I wake up pretty early. So that's usually my best time for gluing or doing art, because it's like time I can almost always count on. It's just quiet, and today's rainy actually. It's a nice rainy spring day. All right, so we're now going to move on to these pages here. And right here we have Jemima Puddle Duck thinking about how she would love to have some eggs. And the barn's kind of like, oh no, I don't know about that, you know. And they're not too sure about it because they don't think that she's going to be able to sit on the eggs and hatch them. So I found this little story in the magazine called The Price of Eggs, and I thought I would include that, and I will read you the story so that way you can hear it. It's a cute little tale of raising chickens. The title is The Price of Eggs, and it was written by Colleen Oakley. Don't you think we have enough going on? This was my husband Fred's logical response when I suggested that we add a flock of baby chicks to our already expansive brood of 4 children, 2 guinea pigs, a 15-year-old German Shepherd mix, and 1 tetra fish. But I had already been wooed by the backyard chicken lifestyle. Thanks, Instagram. I could just picture it. Me in my prairie skirt, that I didn't own yet, holding a wicker basket, ditto for the basket, and my darling kids plucking fresh eggs from the coop each morning and tossing the chickens' feed as joyfully as one tosses rice at a wedding. The image did not woo my husband with the same fervor, so I instead appealed to his wallet. Eggs are $6 a dozen. Think of the money we'll save. We got the chicks, 4 of the cutest balls of fluff you've ever seen, only $2 apiece. We also picked up a heat lamp, $20, some organic starter feed, $31, a chick feeder, $9, and waterer, $11, and bedding, $26. We put them in a cardboard box, free, in our mudroom, while my husband and eldest son, Henry, put together the prefab wooden coop we bought online, $125. For the next 2 years, these chickens were like family. I say that because, much like young children, they cost us a lot of money, and we didn't get much back in return. As it turned out, the shoddy design of our coop was not watertight. Also, its flimsy door left our hens vulnerable to the hawks and coyotes that roam our suburban Atlanta neighborhood at night. So my husband and Henry built a second, sturdier coop with lumber and chicken wire from Home Depot, $200. We dutifully tossed the hens their feed, $50 per bag per month, and after 6 months, they dutifully began laying 1 egg each per day, until they went on strike. Apparently, chickens don't like to produce when it's too cold outside, or when it's too hot, or when they simply don't feel like it. Then, one late winter evening, a fox literally got into our henhouse. The kids were heartbroken. I was less so. At least now we were going to save a lot of money on eggs. Wistfully, I hung up my suburban chicken farmer dreams, and I gave the prairie skirt to Goodwill. So, you can imagine my surprise when, a year later, Fred mentioned that our local feed and seed had just received a new shipment of baby chicks. "Don't you think we have enough going on?" I asked. "Yes, but I figured out what went wrong with the coop," he replied, a gleam in his eye. "I can build a better one this time." $300 in materials later, we are once again the proud parents of 4 chickens. Would you like some eggs? They're only $45 a dozen. I thought that was so cute, and I thought it kind of went with the whole theme on this page here with the eggs, with the chickens laying eggs that are hatching into baby chicks, and then we've got the ducks and the lady here in the image that Beatrix Potter has illustrated. And there she is wearing her prairie skirt. So I wanted to include pictures of chickens and eggs. And I found an image of a lady holding a chicken, and she looks really happy. So I just thought that kind of all went together. And then, of course, we have Jemima Puddle Duck announcing that she would like to also lay some eggs and have some little baby ducklings of her own. And is this well received? No, not at all. But we'll get to that in a minute. First, we got to add these little baby chicks on the page. Okay, so on this page, I am taking inspiration once again from the illustration in the center, and I am going to make a scene with all kinds of animals. Word has gotten out that Jemima Puddle Duck is thinking about having some eggs of her very own, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, not again. She is such a bad sitter. She doesn't stay with the eggs. She always winds up leaving them. Nothing good ever comes of this. This can't happen." So the chickens and the cow who are in that illustration, oh, and it looks like there's another little duck as well, they all hear what she says, and then they're like, going around like, "Jemima wants to have some eggs." And, then the next one, "Jemima wants to have some eggs. Jemima wants to have some eggs." And no one can believe it. This big old cow. I love this image of the big cow. I fussy cut them out. And I'm just trying to figure out how I can get all of these images on the page. And I really like this horse too, because I like how the horse is turning its head. So it's like it just got word of this crazy story. Not really a crazy story, because of course, you would think like, well, sure, that's kind of what ducks do, right? They're going to lay eggs, but in this case, it's just because, Jemima Puddle Duck has a bit of a bad reputation with sticking things through to the end, shall we say. And I like to place all of my images before I glue them, just to kind of figure out how I can place everything. And because I like to layer things and build up the page, I like to try to figure out which piece I need to glue down first and how exactly I'm going to put them. I think it'd be fun to just glue randomly one day, but for this one I really wanted to figure out a plan ahead of time, especially where I'm trying to keep all of the illustrations intact that are in the center. They might get covered a little bit, but for the most part, I want you to be able to see them because they're so beautiful. I can't cover up those illustrations, but I can take inspiration from them and build a page all around. So some of the pages I've done in this book are just about spring. I had a rainy day theme and a flower theme. And then some of them I'm looking at, and actually those themes came from the stickers that the previous owner had put in, because they put some raindrops on a page, so I made it about a rainy day. And then other times I'm just looking at the illustration in the center and I'm taking inspiration from that. So my gluing today is all about looking at those images and kind of adding to the story by adding more characters and more sort of themed images that go with it. They're still springy, sort of. I mean, it's a farm. I mean, I guess that's year round. But yeah, I think it's fun to look at the illustration and then just kind of add to it, Now, this horse was giving me a lot of trouble. You will see me pick this up and put it down a ton. I don't know how I didn't rip this horse with all my fussing and lifting it up and putting it down, but I didn't want any of the little hooves to be off the page. So I was really trying to carefully place them so that they didn't cover up too many of the cows in the image that they were on top of. And yet, you could still see the full horse. But I'm really shocked it didn't rip. I did rip the little tree that was glued down there in the bottom right corner, but I don't really mind that was ripped. That's okay. As long as I didn't rip off any of the horse's like tail or head or legs by accident. But I switched to different glues. So I have the Scotch Permanent, and that one is trickier sometimes to move images after you've glued them. So I switched to my other one. It looks like it says Cocoina on it. That's the big one. And I switched to that. It could be Cochoina. I'm not sure. It's Italian, I think. And the reason why I like that one is because you have time to play with the images after you use the glue. The glue is very sticky. It's not for everybody. It's a very sticky kind of gooey glue. So if you don't like that sort of texture, then I wouldn't recommend it. But I enjoy it because it allows me time to move images if I need to lift them up and put them down, or just to like scooch them around a little bit. Like say I place something a little too close to the edge, I can just kind of scooch it a little bit in. So I do enjoy that glue. But see, now I'm using the Scotch Permanent because now I'm like, okay, this is definitely where I want the horse to go. And it's also a smaller glue stick, so it's easier for me to like lift up. If there's a little flap that I didn't glue down or a little edge, I can kind of get in there and get some glue in there to glue down. So the horse has been placed. Well, I guess I used the big glue for that too. I don't know. I go back and forth. And a little bunny down there. That bunny's like, what? I just liked their expression. They're keeping an ear out. Passing the word on, Just some little pictures here and there. And then I am trying to also add some of the original stickers back in once I'm done. So each page has like an original little sticker that, like I said, the original owner put in, because sometimes I have to take them off the page, then I glue on the page, then put like a couple of the stickers back on there. And then I'm just seeing if I want to use any of these smaller little scraps that I had trimmed off before to kind of go where the seams are. So let's trim this nest out for our next page. And I'm also going to try some napkin. Now I have used napkin before, but I forget to use it most of the time. And I'm not sure if this is a good thing to put down first, only because I don't know if it'll make it a little more challenging for the images to glue on top of it. But, you know, let's just go for it. But I like that it covers up the text. You can still kind of see the text through some of the lighter areas, but it covers it up enough, and it makes like a really nice springy background. So I thought that's a perfect way to kind of fill up the page first, and then, you know, you can always glue on top of it. I'm hoping it won't get too, not bulky, but just sort of like, you know, you're going to have that extra texture there. It won't be flat, I guess I should say. I was hoping that when I glued the images on top, number one, they would stick okay, and number two, they wouldn't get like super wrinkly because of that texture of the napkin underneath. And I ripped the napkin there, as you can see, as I applied a little extra. I'm using gel medium. Artist's Acrylic Medium Gel by Handy Art is what I am using. And then, of course, I had to let that dry. And now I'm just figuring out my page. And as we can see, this is the end of the story. And we have Jemima Puddle Duck with her ducklings. Now, she didn't get there easily. She had to have some help from the farm, of course, because her first go around with her eggs didn't go so well because of the fox that she encountered. But this time, you know, she had her ducklings. So we are going to celebrate and make this all about Jemima's little ducklings that she was able to raise. And I think it's pretty much with the help of the farm, because if it wasn't for the animals looking out for her, and especially the dogs, then I don't think she would have had them. Now I am just adding a little bit of this parchment colored acrylic paint around the edge of the illustration because I don't want it to be white. So I'm going to use the wreath as a frame, and I just thought that that paint would make it so that it blends a lot better instead of having that white border. And then I thought, well, this napkin's textured. Let's put a little paint where the texture is too. Now, of course, I may wind up covering it up, but I liked how it looked. Now, this image was from the image of the tulips. Look at those little ducklings, though. Isn't that so cute? Those are Jemima's little ducklings. But this tulip image was from a Reminisce magazine from the 90s. And I took the image, even though a lot of the images from the 90s are actually like pretty dark. But in this case, I think it's perfect because the ducklings, if I just put them on the napkin background, they were blending in way too much. So I wanted a dark background, but I still wanted it to be springy. So this was perfect. So we've got our little ducklings on their tulip background. I got to make sure I glue that down first. Now, as you can see, it didn't quite stick too well. So I am going to grab a little bit of tacky glue and just put that on very thinly because I don't want big blobs in there or anything. So just very thinly putting that in there. I don't have a glitter glue, so I think I'm going to order one of those because I would like to have the little glue with the like fine tip nozzle. I think that would be really helpful, especially for getting under the edges, because sometimes when I go to lift an edge, like I'm doing here, it's fine, but sometimes, you know, when it's mostly glued down, but there's just like this one little piece that isn't, and when you want to get to it, if you try to lift it or get a glue stick in there, it can rip the image. So a little fine tip glue would be very handy to have. But we made it work. The tacky glue was great. So I got the background on, then the little ducklings, and I found these words, best laid plans. So I was like, well, that's perfect. Now we got to decorate the back cover, and look at this image. Too cute. Somebody made that little home for the ducklings out in the water so they could swim out to it and have a little house to be in. I think that's so cute. That makes me wish I lived on the water and I had little baby ducks. Be so cute. Now I'm like that lady in the first story there, The Price of Eggs, where she's thinking about wearing a prairie skirt and how awesome it would be to have like a farm, she's thinking about chickens. I always think about how awesome it must be to like have a farm and all that land and have the animals. And, like she said, I also imagine like, you're wearing all the cottagecore clothes, just baking every day and with the animals and fresh, food from the garden, fresh eggs, But, my mom used to say, she still says it, but she loves horses. But she always says she wished she had a house next to a horse farm. So it's like she could enjoy looking at the horses and watching them and being near them, but yet someone else is taking care of them. Now, I did have chickens growing up. My dad taught biology, and a lot of times in the classroom, they would have like class pets, or, in this case, they were studying, eggs hatching. So they had an incubator and all that, and the eggs hatched. The lesson was done, and there were 7 chickens. So who wants these 7 chickens? Nobody? Well, okay, they're coming home then. So home they came, and I loved it. My dad built a little chicken coop, and they were free-range chickens for the most part. They just walked around, and that didn't always go well. We did have some dogs that had attacked, and perhaps a fox, got to some of them. But we did have 2 that lived for a long amount of time. The longest lived one was 7, which I think is pretty good for chicken years, right? But it was great. I loved it. We had fresh eggs, and the chickens would follow it. I mean, they all had different personalities. They weren't all nice. Some of them were a little more like, nippy, shall we say? Pecky. They were peckish. And some of them were really sweet. You could pick them up and hold them. My sister used to love to hold them and walk around with them all day. So that was fun. Sometimes I think about getting chickens again now. But we do have like a bit of conservation land and stuff behind us. And, we've got everything out there. We've got like coyotes. We've got, I almost said wolverines. We don't have wolverines, but, we do have a lot of predators. We have bobcats, foxes, coyotes, and fisher cats. So I don't know. It feels like there's just a lot of enemies out there that are like right there, or predators, I should say, that are right there. Anyway, that was a total sidetrack. Back to the gluing. Just making a border around this picture and just trying to cover up. There's a little bit of text here and there, and that is what I am covering up. And the napkin returns again to cover up a little bit of text. And nope, that's my matte medium there, or gel medium, I guess. But I will add a little bit of that parchment paint on there once that dries. And that way it kind of goes with the page next to it. So here are our finished pages. We have the inside cover with our bunnies looking in at the eggs. Doesn't it look like they're just eagerly awaiting for them to hatch? The little robins there perched on the basket. And then we have our page all about eggs and egg laying. Who's having eggs? Who isn't? Who's dreaming of having chickens and how fun that would be? And then on the opposite side, we have all of our farmyard friends in a frenzy, a farmyard friends frenzy, as they are all gossiping about Miss Jemima Puddle Duck and whether or not she is fit to be a mom, I guess. And our last 2 pages celebrate the new ducklings, the success. We are welcoming them with a celebration, a wreath, and eggs, and pictures of ducklings. Oh, and there's a little sticker there with a bird popping out of an egg. I actually found a duckling sticker, though, so I did add that later on. And on this page, I added a little bit of that paint, like I said, to that napkin at the top right. And I also added a couple of the stickers. There were some tulip stickers. So there's one on the left, almost on the inside there. And then the bottom right. Oh, the bottom right is a fence, actually. So a couple of the original stickers on each page. So that's it for me today. I had so much fun gluing away in here. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you are having a wonderful spring day, and I'll see you again soon.